The stars were vanishing. In the grand observatory, the galaxy's greatest minds stared at their holographic maps in disbelief. One by one, systems that had burned brightly for millennia disappeared, leaving nothing but empty void. Even the scholars who had once laughed at humanity's attempts at space travel, now whispered among themselves, their confidence shattered. "This cannot be happening," said the elder scholar, his voice trembling. "Our instruments are perfect. Nothing in the universe can erase stars like this." The young scholar who first noticed the flicker spoke up. "It's real. The darkness is moving across the galaxy. And it's intelligent. It chooses its path." Other scholars exchanged uneasy glances. Some tried to argue, citing probabilities and natural cosmic events. But the numbers did not lie. Entire star systems were gone. No light, no energy, nothing remained. Outside the observatory, probes were launched in every direction. They sped through the blackness, sending signals back. At first, the readings were normal. But as they approached the outer edge of the galaxy, the darkness swallowed them. One by one, the probes failed, their signals cut short, never to return. In a quiet sector far from the observatory, a small alien scout ship drifted. Its crew, confident in their speed and shields, laughed at the reports from the scholars. "This is nonsense," one pilot said. "We are far from the edge. Nothing can reach here." Then their lights flickered. Systems failed. Alarms blared. The ship shuddered violently. A dark tendril of energy touched the hull, spreading across it like liquid shadow. The crew screamed, trying to regain control, but the darkness ignored their attempts. In moments, the ship disappeared, erased from sensors, leaving behind only a faint burn mark in space. Back in the observatory, the scholars grew more anxious. They realized the darkness was not random, it was moving with purpose, consuming light, leaving nothing behind. "We underestimated it," one said quietly. "We cannot stop it with our ships. Our technology is useless." Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity's scientists worked tirelessly. Unlike the scholars, humans had not dismissed the unusual flickers they noticed in the night sky. Amateur astronomers had been tracking strange changes in distant stars for weeks. Satellites detected unusual energy fluctuations at the galaxy's edge. Dr. Elena Martinez, a leading astrophysicist, examined the data on Earth. "Something is moving," she said, pointing at her holographic chart. "It's not normal. It's not a natural event. And it's coming closer." Her colleagues were skeptical. "But Dr. Martinez, what could possibly cause an entire star to vanish?" asked another scientist. "Whatever it is," she replied calmly, "it is intelligent. And it's approaching the inner systems." Across the galaxy, the scholars at the Grand Observatory ignored the humans' warnings. They still laughed privately, calling Earth scientists childlike creatures who could not comprehend the universe. But deep down, a few began to wonder if humans might be more capable than they thought. The darkness continued its path. Star by star it advanced. Signals from other civilizations began to falter. Panic spread in distant systems. Ships sent to investigate the vanished stars never returned. The galaxy, once full of vibrant light and sound, fell silent in places. On Earth, Dr. Martinez convened a secret meeting with the world's leading engineers and military scientists. "We are facing something the galaxy has never seen," she said. "And they will not listen to us. If we wait for help, it will be too late. We have to act now." They began designing a detection device, something that could track the darkness and measure its energy patterns. It was a complex machine, unlike anything humans had built before. But humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived. They did not fear the unknown. They studied it, learned from it, and prepared to fight it. Meanwhile, the scholars grew desperate. Some called for evacuations, others for military action, but their fleets were powerless. The darkness moved too fast, too unpredictably. Their knowledge of the universe, their pride, even their weapons, all were useless against it. One young scholar, the first to notice the flicker, pleaded with her colleagues. "We must listen to Earth. Perhaps their small minds have insight we cannot see." The elder scholars laughed bitterly. "Listen to humans? We have studied them for centuries. They are nothing but weak, emotional creatures." But that small voice planted a seed of doubt. The galaxy's greatest minds, who had once mocked humans without mercy, now began to wonder, could it be that the smallest planet held the greatest chance of survival? As the darkness approached the inner spiral of the galaxy, more stars vanished. Entire civilizations were cut off. Planets lost their suns. Planets once thriving with life were plunged into cold darkness. And still, humanity on Earth worked, They tested the detection device, analyzing every shadow, every flicker, every change in energy. Slowly they began to understand the nature of the darkness. It was not just a force, it was alive, moving with purpose, almost as if it were hunting. In the grand observatory, panic reached its peak. Scholars admitted what they had long denied: they had no solution. Their arrogance had blinded them to the danger. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, humanity quietly prepared, unaware that they were about to be drawn into the galaxy's first true war, the war against the darkness. The first human probe was ready. Small, fast, and equipped with experimental sensors, it was humanity's first attempt to touch the darkness. Scientists held their breath as the probe launched, speeding toward the void. Time passed. Slowly, signals returned. And against all odds, the probe survived where thousands of alien ships had failed. Its sensors sent back images of darkness, moving like a living entity, twisting around stars and consuming their light. The galaxy scholars stared at the data, their jaws dropping. Even they could not deny it. Something was coming. Something unstoppable. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Martinez whispered to her team, "This is only the beginning. We have seen the path of the darkness. We know where it will go next. And we will be ready." The darkness continued its march, star by star, system by system. The galaxy trembled. Ships vanished. Systems fell silent. And in the distance, a faint blue planet, small and fragile, prepared to rise against a force no one else could stop. The galaxy's greatest scholars had laughed at humans. Now for the first time they wished they had listened. The war had begun. The probe had returned. Against all odds, it had survived where the galaxy's most advanced ships had vanished. Its small frame carried images of darkness moving through the stars like a living shadow, consuming everything in its path. On Earth, Dr. Elena Martinez stared at the data on the massive screen in the lab. Her heart pounded as she saw the patterns. The darkness moved not randomly but with precision. It sought out stars, systems, and planets, erasing them in a calculated, unstoppable march. "This is unlike anything we've seen before," she whispered. Her team leaned closer, eyes wide, scanning the images. "It's intelligent. It knows where it's going." One of her assistants, a young engineer named Sam, spoke up. "Dr. Martinez, if it continues, the entire galaxy could be destroyed. Not just distant stars, eventually it could reach the inner systems, including our sun." Elena nodded slowly. "We cannot wait for help. We cannot call the galaxy scholars, they've already failed. We have to study it ourselves and find a way to stop it." Meanwhile, the grand observatory scholars argued endlessly. The young scholar who first noticed the darkness pleaded for action. "Humans may have answers. They are observing patterns we cannot see." The elder scholars laughed bitterly. "Humans? They are weak, emotional, incapable of comprehending cosmic forces. Their tiny minds cannot help us now." But even as they dismissed her, she noticed a small tremor of doubt spreading through the room. The missing stars, the vanished probes, the panic of entire civilizations, it was undeniable. Something extraordinary was happening. Back on Earth, humanity worked in silence. Governments and scientists formed secret coalitions, pooling their knowledge. Satellites and telescopes were repurposed to track the darkness. Calculations, simulations, and experiments ran day and night. Every anomaly was logged, every movement analyzed. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. The darkness moved along invisible lines, almost like a network or a path. Where it had passed, the stars were gone. Where it would go next, predictions could be made, if only roughly. Elena stood in front of a large holographic projection of the galaxy. "We can see its path," she said. "And we can prepare for it. But we must act quickly. Every second counts." The team began designing a new probe, one capable of withstanding the darkness itself. Unlike previous probes, this one would not merely observe, it would interact. Using energy shields, advanced sensors, and experimental propulsion systems, the humans were attempting the impossible. As they worked, strange signals appeared in the sky. Satellites detected bursts of energy that seemed to come from nowhere. At first it appeared random. But as more data came in, patterns emerged. The darkness was not only consuming stars, it was reacting to observation. Elena realized the truth. "It can detect us," she said quietly. "It knows we are watching." Across the galaxy, scholars were in disbelief. "The humans, they understand the darkness?" one elder whispered. "How can this be? We have studied the universe for centuries, yet they, a primitive species, are making progress." Despite their pride, fear began to creep in. The galaxy had laughed at humanity. Now humanity was quietly taking the lead against an enemy that no one else could stop. The first human probe, named Sentinel, was ready for launch. Engineers and scientists crowded the control room, monitoring every system. Satellites in orbit relayed data to the probe, which carried advanced sensors designed to measure the darkness's energy, its movement, and perhaps even its intent. Launch in 5, 4, 3. Elena's voice trembled with tension, though her eyes burned with determination. 2, 1, launch. The probe shot into space, leaving a thin blue trail as it accelerated toward the edge of the galaxy. For a moment, the room was silent. Every screen, every sensor, every mind waited. Then the first images came through. The darkness loomed ahead, massive and incomprehensible. It stretched across star systems, a shadow that swallowed light, moving with intent and precision. And yet, the probe remained intact, its shields holding against the consuming void. The scientists cheered quietly. Against all odds, Sentinel was surviving where thousands of alien ships had failed. The proof was clear: humanity could face the darkness, even with their primitive technology. Back at the Grand Observatory, the scholars were in shock. Impossible, one said repeatedly. Humans, they are surviving it? The young scholar who had noticed the darkness first spoke again. I told you, they see things we cannot. They understand patterns we cannot predict. But pride still clung to many of the elders. It is luck, one sneered. They have no chance of stopping it. They are small, weak, emotional. They will fail. Yet doubt had taken root. And doubt was dangerous. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Sentinel probe continued to move through the darkness, sending back invaluable data. Scientists analyzed every bit, mapping the dark energy and even detecting faint pulses within it. The darkness was alive, yes, but it was also reactive. It responded to stimuli, to observation, to energy. Elena realized that this was humanity's advantage. We are not strong like the galaxy's fleets, she told her team. But we are smart. We can learn. We can adapt. And we can fight. As days passed, humans made small breakthroughs. Shields were improved, sensors refined, and energy patterns decoded. They discovered weak points in the darkness, spots where it could be slowed or diverted. Slowly they began to form a plan, not to destroy it but to contain it, to protect the galaxy. But the darkness was not idle. It sensed humanity's activity. In the distant void, shadow tendrils moved faster, shifting direction, adapting to the probe's presence. It was intelligent, cunning, and aware. In the Grand Observatory, whispers spread. Humans, could they be our only hope? The young scholar nodded, secretly relieved that someone might finally face the darkness. She knew that the galaxy had underestimated the human race for centuries, but now humanity's quiet observation and clever thinking might be the only thing standing between survival and annihilation. And on Earth, humanity prepared for the next step. The Sentinel probe had survived. Data was being analyzed, and the first human attempt to face the darkness directly had begun. The galaxy was watching, and for the first time, the smallest planet held the brightest hope. The darkness advanced, but so did humanity. The war had moved from panic and observation to strategy and action. The scholars had mocked humans. Now humans were learning, adapting, and preparing for a battle the galaxy had never imagined. The unexpected war was no longer just a threat. It was approaching. And humanity, small, fragile, and underestimated, was ready to face it. The darkness had reached the inner systems. Its black tendrils moved like living shadows, consuming stars, systems, and planets. Panic spread across the galaxy. Fleets that had once dominated star lanes were powerless. Entire civilizations trembled before the advancing void. And yet, on one small blue planet, humans prepared for the final confrontation. Dr. Elena Martinez stood in the central command room, surrounded by her team of scientists, engineers, and military advisors. Holographic projections displayed the darkness in real time, showing its tendrils twisting toward inhabited systems. Every pulse, every flicker, every weak point detected by the probes was carefully analyzed. This is it, Elena said. The darkness has reached the inner systems. Our network is holding, but only barely. We need to act decisively. Tonight, humanity will strike. Her team nodded, eyes wide with determination. They had spent months observing, calculating, and preparing. They had learned where the void was weakest, where it reacted most to energy pulses, and how it could be guided. Humanity's advantage was intelligence, unpredictability, and courage. The traits no fleet, no empire, and no scholar had fully understood. The first step of the plan was simple but daring. Dozens of small, fast ships would carry energy nodes into the void, extending humanity's network directly into the heart of the darkness. Unlike previous missions, this one was active, not just observation but confrontation. As the ships launched, alarms blared across the galaxy. Fleets that remained watched in disbelief. No civilization had dared to engage the darkness so directly. "This is madness," one elder scholar whispered at the Grand Observatory. "Humans are too small, too fragile. They will fail." But the young scholar who had first noticed the darkness smiled. "They are small, yes, but clever. Watch closely. Humanity may succeed where all others failed." The ships entered the darkness, energy nodes glowing brightly against the consuming void. For a moment, the shadows reacted violently, twisting and lashing out. Ships shuddered as tendrils of dark energy struck shields and hulls. Alarms screamed. But humanity endured. Every energy pulse, every shield adjustment, every node deployment was calculated precisely. Slowly, the network began to take shape within the darkness, stabilizing weak points and diverting tendrils. The void twisted and adapted, but humans were faster, anticipating each move. On Earth, Elena watched the data streams intently. "We can guide it," she whispered. "We can lead it away from inhabited systems. We can protect the galaxy." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the scholars were stunned. Entire fleets that had failed to stop the darkness now watched a single planet civilization shaping its movement. "Humans, they are controlling it?" one elder asked in disbelief. The young scholar nodded. "Yes. Small, fragile, underestimated, and yet they adapt faster than any fleet. Perhaps this is why they were ignored for so long." The darkness pulsed and writhed, sensing the intrusion. It lashed out at the nodes, trying to crush humanity's network. Signals flickered. Some ships were lost. But the humans persisted, adjusting in real time, reinforcing weak points, and deploying new nodes faster than the void could react. For the first time, the darkness recoiled, its movement slowed. Entire regions of space that had been consumed paused, as if resisting observation and guidance. The galaxy held its breath. Elena smiled faintly. "We're doing it. We're slowing it. We're taking control." Human ingenuity continued to shine. The Vanguard and Sentinel probes relayed data directly to ships and nodes, allowing humans to predict every twist, every pulse, every response of the darkness. Slowly, the void was contained, diverted from inhabited systems, and funneled toward empty sectors of space. In the Grand Observatory, the elders' faces were pale. Pride had been shattered, replaced by awe. They are doing it," one whispered. "A species we called weak, primitive, is saving the galaxy." The young scholar watched in silent satisfaction. This is why humans must never be underestimated. But the darkness was not defeated. It lashed out with immense energy, striking nodes and ships in bursts of pure destructive force. Alarms screamed. The void pulsed violently as if aware of the growing resistance. Yet humanity endured. Shields held. Nodes stabilized weak points. Ships adapted. And slowly, inch by inch, the darkness was guided away from populated sectors, diverted into empty regions where it could do no harm. The first major victory came when a cluster of vital inner systems was fully shielded. Stars that had been at risk continued to burn. Planets remained intact. The darkness recoiled, unable to penetrate the carefully maintained network. Humanity had not destroyed it, but they had survived. They had contained it. On Earth, Elena breathed a sigh of relief. "It's working," she said. "We've done the impossible. We've survived the darkness." Across the galaxy, the scholars were stunned into silence. Fleets that had mocked humans, civilizations that had ignored them, now realized the truth. Size and strength were not enough. Intelligence, courage, adaptability, these were the qualities that had saved the galaxy. The young scholar at the observatory whispered, "They are extraordinary. Humanity has proven itself." Meanwhile, the darkness pulsed one final time. It recoiled from the network, twisted violently, and then slowly withdrew into the void. Stars and systems that had been at risk began to shine brightly again, though some had been lost forever. The galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief. The threat had not been destroyed, but for the first time it had been stopped. Contained. Managed. Humanity's small, fragile planet had become the savior of the galaxy. Where empires had failed, humans had succeeded, not through brute force but through intelligence, observation, and courage. Elena watched the stars through the observatory window, the glow of distant systems reflecting in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered softly. We survived. And the galaxy will never forget that humanity cannot be underestimated. Back at the Grand Observatory, the elders bowed their heads. Pride had been replaced by humility. And one young scholar, smiling quietly, whispered to herself, "The galaxy laughed at humans, until the darkness learned to fear them." The unexpected war was over, for now. But one truth remained clear across the stars. Humanity, small, fragile, and underestimated, had shown that intelligence, courage, and adaptability could challenge even the void itself. The galaxy would remember this day forever. The darkness was no longer just a distant threat. Across the galaxy, stars continued to vanish. Entire systems fell silent, swallowed by the creeping void. Civilizations that had once thrived were now cut off, their lights extinguished. Panic gripped the outer sectors, and fleets of alien ships scrambled to understand what was happening, but all failed. Yet, humanity on Earth worked silently, observing and calculating. Every piece of information from the Sentinel probe was studied, every movement of the darkness analyzed. Dr. Elena Martinez gathered her team in the central lab, a small circle of humans compared to the vast galaxy. "We know its path," Elena said, pointing at a holographic display of the galactic map. "It moves like a hunter choosing which stars to erase. And it's learning. It reacts to observation." Her team nodded gravely. The challenge was enormous. No known weapon could harm the darkness. Conventional fleets would be destroyed. Entire civilizations had failed. Yet, humanity had one advantage: intelligence, adaptability, and courage. "We have to act," Elena continued. "We must study it, probe it, and find a way to slow it down. We cannot let it reach the inner systems or even our sun." Meanwhile, at the Grand Observatory, the scholars panicked. "We've lost control," an elder whispered. "The darkness moves faster than any fleet. Our calculations fail." The young scholar who had first noticed the flicker spoke urgently. "Humanity may have answers. Their observation may help us understand it." The elders laughed bitterly. "Humans? They are weak, emotional. They cannot save anyone." Yet doubt had already begun to take root in their minds. Pride could not protect them from the fear growing in their hearts. Back on Earth, humanity's scientists launched the first active mission. A probe equipped not only to observe but also to interact with the darkness. The probe, called Vanguard, carried energy emitters designed to test weak points in the void. It would approach the darkness directly, a feat no other civilization had achieved. The launch was tense. Every engineer, every scientist, every observer held their breath as the small craft accelerated into the void. Outside, the darkness pulsed, moving closer to the inner galaxy. "Trajectory confirmed," a young engineer said, voice shaking. "All systems nominal. Shielding stable. Vanguard is moving into the darkness." Elena stared at the monitor. "Remember, it may detect us. Stay alert. Every second counts." The probe entered the darkness. Immediately, sensors detected energy fluctuations unlike anything previously recorded. Waves of shadow pulsed and twisted, reacting to the probe's presence. Vanguard moved cautiously, sending back images of the void as it navigated through the consuming blackness. Back in the lab, scientists whispered in awe. "It's alive," one said. "It's thinking, adapting, even responding." "Yes," Elena replied. "And we can learn from it. We can predict its movements." The Vanguard probe tested a small energy pulse, a controlled emission of light and force designed to interact with the darkness. The void reacted instantly. Shadows twisted violently, then recoiled slightly. The probe survived, but the energy field pulsed back with more intensity. Elena's eyes widened. "It's strong, but it reacted to our signal. That's something. We can use this." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the scholars watched the probe's data, unable to believe what they saw. "Humans, they survived it? Where our fleets failed, they succeed," one elder muttered. The young scholar nodded. "They are small, yes, but clever. They study, they adapt. Perhaps, they are the only ones who can face this." The darkness began to move faster, sensing the probe. Its tendrils spread toward the inner systems, reacting to every pulse, every signal. Ships in distant sectors were obliterated before they could escape. Entire civilizations were now truly threatened. On Earth, the humans' observations led to breakthroughs. They discovered weak points in the darkness, areas where its energy was unstable, where pulses of force could slow its advance. The Vanguard probe navigated carefully, testing these weak points, gathering invaluable data. Elena gathered her team. "We have a plan," she said. "We can't destroy it, But we can defend the inner systems, protect our sun, and perhaps guide it away from inhabited sectors. We'll use our intelligence, our adaptability, and our courage. That is humanity's advantage. The Grand Observatory scholars remained silent, stunned into disbelief. They had spent centuries mocking humans, believing them insignificant. Yet here they were, small, fragile creatures taking the first real steps against a cosmic threat that had destroyed countless fleets and civilizations. In the depths of space, the darkness sensed the probe's activity. It pulsed and twisted, spreading tendrils toward the small blue planet. For the first time, the universe seemed aware of humans, not as weaklings but as adversaries. As the probe relayed its data, the humans began constructing defenses. Energy nodes, shielding satellites, and advanced mapping systems were prepared to predict and slow the darkness. Each system was carefully placed, using information from the probe's real-time observations. The first encounters with the darkness were terrifying. Satellite systems experienced blackouts. Sensor arrays flickered and died. Communication lines were cut. And yet, the humans endured, adapting to every attack, learning from every failure. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Where mighty fleets had been destroyed, humanity's small ships and satellites survived. Where vast empires had failed, a single planet's scientists were slowly building hope. The young scholar at the observatory whispered almost to herself, They might succeed where we have failed. Perhaps this is why they were underestimated. Back on Earth, Elena's team worked tirelessly. Days and nights blurred together. Every pulse, every image, every weak point discovered brought them closer to a possible solution. The darkness advanced relentlessly, but humans adapted faster than it could anticipate. The first confrontation between humanity and the darkness had begun. Small, careful, and intelligent, humans tested the void, learning its strengths and weaknesses. The galaxy scholars, once mocking, now watched in awe, realizing for the first time that humans, tiny, fragile, and underestimated, might hold the key to survival. And somewhere in the darkness, a pulse of energy twisted, aware of the challenge before it. The war was no longer just about survival, it was a test. A test of courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. Humanity had taken its first step into the void. And the universe would never underestimate them again. The unexpected war had truly begun. The darkness spread relentlessly. Star by star, system by system, it consumed everything in its path. Entire civilizations were wiped out before they could even respond. Messages sent to the outer galaxies went unanswered. Ships vanished, fleets disappeared, and worlds were plunged into cold, lifeless void. Panic rippled across the stars. At the Grand Observatory, scholars no longer laughed. Their pride had been stripped away, replaced by fear. "We miscalculated," an elder said, his voice shaking. "This is not a natural event. It is alive. And it is unstoppable with our fleets." The young scholar who first noticed the darkness spoke urgently. "Humanity, they might be our only chance. They survived the probe test. They understand patterns that we cannot." The elders scoffed at first. "Humans? They are primitive. They cannot hope to match a cosmic force like this." But doubt had already rooted itself in their minds. Observing humanity from the galaxy's distance, they could see something different: resilience, intelligence, and courage where pride and technology alone had failed. On Earth, Dr. Elena Martinez and her team worked tirelessly. Using data from the Vanguard probe, they began constructing a network of energy nodes and satellites. These devices would act as both shields and sensors, mapping the darkness in real time and attempting to slow its advance. It was the first true human strategy against a force no other civilization had survived. "This is humanity's advantage," Elena said, addressing her team. "We are small, yes. Our technology is limited. But we learn. We adapt. We anticipate. That is why we have a chance where giants have fallen." The first network nodes were deployed in the outer systems. Small ships carried them to the edge of the darkness, placing devices carefully according to calculations. Each node emitted pulses of energy designed to stabilize weak points in the darkness, slowing its advance. The first tests were tense. Signals flickered. Energy pulses met resistance. Ships shuddered under sudden waves of dark energy. But humanity persisted, learning from each encounter, adjusting positions, refining energy emissions. Meanwhile, fleets across the galaxy attempted to follow humanity's lead. The scholars ordered their ships to mimic the node's energy patterns, trying to slow the darkness. But it was too late for most civilizations. Their fleets were already shattered, their knowledge of the darkness incomplete. The only civilization showing progress was Earth. As the darkness advanced, humans discovered something unexpected. The void reacted to observation. The more carefully they studied it, the more predictable it became. Patterns emerged. They could anticipate its moves. Where other civilizations had failed with brute force, humans succeeded with intelligence and observation. Elena reviewed the probe's latest data. It's learning, yes, but it can be guided. If we continue our network, we can divert it from inhabited systems. We can buy time. We can save lives. In the Grand Observatory, the young scholar whispered, "Humans, they are remarkable. They see what we cannot. Perhaps we underestimated them for too long." The elders, however, were slow to accept the truth. Their pride had blinded them for centuries. Now, fear gnawed at their hearts. "We have studied the universe for eons," one said bitterly. "And yet, these humans so small, are outsmarting us?" As the days passed, the darkness pressed closer to the inner systems. Stars flickered and vanished. Ships vanished. Panic spread across entire sectors. Communications broke down. Civilization after civilization teetered on the edge of extinction. But on Earth, humanity adapted. Each setback became a lesson. Each loss provided insight. The nodes were deployed faster, energy pulses optimized, and new probes launched to map weak points more precisely. Humans worked day and night, driven by a combination of fear, hope, and determination. The first major confrontation with the darkness was near a cluster of outer stars. Humanity had placed several nodes, creating a makeshift shield. The darkness reached them, tendrils of energy curling toward the protective network. Ships shuddered as waves of dark energy struck. For a moment, it seemed the nodes would fail. Signals flickered. Satellites went offline. Energy pulses faltered. And then, slowly, the darkness recoiled. It could not pass through the carefully constructed field. It twisted and adapted, probing for weaknesses, but the humans adjusted as quickly as it moved. Elena watched the data stream in. "It's working. The nodes are holding." She turned to her team, eyes shining. "We can do this. We can slow it. And we can buy time for the galaxy." Meanwhile, the Grand Observatory scholars observed in disbelief. Where their fleets had failed, humans had succeeded with ingenuity and courage. "They are saving systems?" one elder whispered. The young scholar nodded. "Yes. And we ignored them. We mocked them. Perhaps we should have listened long ago." The darkness pulsed violently. It was aware of the humans' interference. Tendrils lashed toward the nodes, attempting to overwhelm the shields. The galaxy watched silently, unable to intervene. Ships that had survived so far were either destroyed or powerless. The fate of countless stars hung in the balance. On Earth, humans anticipated each move. Probes scanned, energy pulses adjusted, and new nodes deployed. The network grew, expanding outward, creating a lattice of resistance. The darkness was slowed, but it was far from defeated. Elena addressed her team. "This is only the beginning. The darkness will adapt. We'll try new methods. But we are learning faster than it can. We are small, yes, but we are human. And that makes us unpredictable." The galaxy trembled as humans continued their work. Scholars who had once laughed now whispered their amazement. Aliens who had dismissed Earth's small, primitive population began to understand something vital. Size and strength alone were not enough. Intelligence, courage, and adaptability were equally important, and humans possessed all three. In the darkness, a pulse of energy moved strangely, reacting to the humans' network. It twisted, recoiled, and seemed almost aware of their efforts. The war was no longer passive observation. It was a battle of minds, strategy, and adaptability. Across the galaxy, panic escalated. Entire civilizations had no choice but to watch. They could not stop the darkness. They could not understand its patterns. And yet, humanity stood firm, small but determined, facing the consuming void with courage and ingenuity. The Grand Observatory fell silent. Pride had been replaced by awe. Fear had replaced laughter. And one young scholar who had noticed the darkness first, realized the truth. Humans, tiny, underestimated, fragile, might be the galaxy's only hope. As the darkness advanced, humanity's network grew stronger. Energy nodes pulsed, satellites adjusted, probes mapped weak points. The battle was ongoing, tense, and terrifying. The unexpected war had escalated. Stars vanished. Systems trembled. Ships were destroyed. And yet, in the midst of panic and fear, one small planet's humans persevered. Their courage and intelligence had become a beacon of hope in a galaxy on the brink of annihilation. The darkness was powerful. But humanity was clever. And cleverness, the galaxy would soon learn, could challenge even the void itself. The unexpected war was far from over, but for the first time the tide had begun to shift. The grand observatory floated high above the swirling blue and green of a distant planet. Its tall spires and shining domes stretched into the stars, a place where the galaxy's greatest minds came together. Inside, scholars of every kind, tentacled, winged, and multi-eyed, gathered around holographic star maps, their voices echoing in the enormous hall. "This little planet," one scholar sneered, pointing to Earth on the hologram, "is insignificant. The creatures there are primitive. They cannot even leave their own atmosphere. Laughable." Another scholar, a tall being with shimmering silver skin, laughed. "I agree. They call themselves humans. Small, weak, and utterly unprepared for the universe. Their ships are toys compared to ours. They are nothing." Across the room, dozens of other scholars nodded, their voices mingling in a chorus of amusement. Charts and models of Earth's progress were displayed, slow, clumsy, and hopeless. They laughed at humanity's attempts to build rockets, satellites, and space stations. Even their brightest minds cannot reach the stars," the first scholar said, tapping the hologram. "They are bound to their little blue planet. They have no idea what awaits beyond their skies." The scholars continued mocking, debating who among the galaxy's races had the most advanced technology, while humans remained an amusing curiosity. The room was filled with pride and arrogance, their confidence shining like the stars they studied. But then, a flicker at the edge of the galaxy caught the attention of a young scholar. Her many eyes blinked rapidly. "Look," she said softly, pointing to the holographic edge where distant stars danced. "Something strange." "Nothing," an elder scholar said dismissively, waving a tentacle. "A sensor glitch. Focus on Earth. That is where the real amusement lies." But the young scholar's heart pounded. The dark flicker moved oddly, almost as if it were alive. It pulsed and shimmered, a shadow weaving between the stars. She leaned closer, trying to understand, but the room around her laughed. "See? It is nothing. You imagine danger in empty space," a senior voice mocked. Still she could not look away. Her gaze shifted back to the stars near the edge of the galaxy. And then it happened. A star blinked out. One moment it was bright, burning gold and white. The next it vanished. Not dimmed, not flickering, gone. The young scholar gasped. "A star? It just disappeared." The elder scholar turned sharply, his pride twisting into irritation. "Impossible. You must be mistaken. Check your instruments." She double-checked the readings. Her heart skipped. The star was really gone. "This is not a glitch," she whispered almost to herself. But no one else seemed to care. "A single star cannot mean anything," another scholar said. "The universe is full of anomalies. Move on. Laugh at Earth. That is far more interesting." Yet, moments later, another star flickered, then vanished. And another. A line of stars along the distant edge of the galaxy began to disappear, one by one, like candles being snuffed out by an invisible hand. The room grew silent. Shock replaced laughter. The elder scholar's long fingers trembled over the console. This cannot happen." Outside, in the black of space, the dark energy grew. It twisted and swirled, moving with intelligence, consuming light as it went. The galaxy's edge was no longer empty, it was alive with darkness, creeping slowly toward the center. Some scholars began sending probes, but even the fastest craft could not escape the shadows. Signals were lost and panic began to stir. The once proud voices of the grand observatory were now quiet whispers. One of the scholars, the youngest, turned to the group, her voice trembling. "The darkness, it moves toward the core. If it continues, it will reach the inner systems." The elders exchanged nervous glances. Years of study, countless calculations, all mocked by a universe they thought they controlled. And yet, here was something no one could predict. Even as fear took hold, one scholar tried to reclaim pride. Perhaps we can stop it. Surely our knowledge is greater than whatever this is." But the darkness did not wait for words. Outside, a distant star system vanished completely. Ships in the region sent distress calls, but none returned. Silence filled the void. The scholars looked at each other, realization dawning too late. The universe, vast and infinite, held forces beyond their control. And for the first time in history, the great minds of the galaxy understood that mocking the small, weak humans may have been their first mistake. Meanwhile, back on Earth, humans gazed at the night sky. Unaware of the scholars' laughter, they saw the first flicker of darkness creeping across the stars. And deep within their curiosity sparked. Something unusual had begun, and they would soon be drawn into a war that the galaxy never imagined. One by one more stars blinked out and the grand observatory fell silent. Pride had vanished. Laughter had ended. Only fear remained. The unexpected war had begun.